If you watched my show this past week, last Wednesday, we had a guest on the show named Lloyd Marcus, and I sent a picture of him to Matt, if you can put his picture up. This gentleman joined us on the show this past Wednesday. He is a songwriter, singer, author, a very, very popular speaker at Tea Party rallies. And in this era of Black Lives Matter, I wanted to honor him because, as it turned out, in an just amazing and odd circumstance, he was on the show Wednesday. If you were listening to him, very high-spirited, very his usual self. Sadly, he passed away on Friday, 2 days later. And so he passed on at the age of 71 from a heart attack. And but he left quite a legacy that I want to honor in terms of really honoring Black lives that mattered. At the age of 71, he had a decades-long record in his life of speaking up for conservative ideas, speaking up in his Black community, and regularly writing and talking about the idea that he was mocked, scorned, ridiculed by family and friends, and certainly by leftists who run much of the media in this country for daring to be a Black man who was proudly conservative. He was leading at this time this effort to bring out the Trump train for President Trump in 2020. When the Tea Party movement evolved several years ago, he was among the most prominent speakers and entertainers. And he's a guy, why he should be honored is because he spoke truth about America, about the goodness of America, the rightness of the ideas of America, and the great danger that the ideas of the Democrat Party pose to all of America, but certainly to the African American community. And speaking of that, his sign-off quite often was the unhyphenated American. He saw the effort that the left makes to divide America by putting everyone into some hyphenated group. He always rejected being called African American. He said, I'm just American. I am an American. So I want to honor him. I just think it's amazing. Lloyd Marcus just happened to join us on Wednesday, passed away unexpectedly on Friday, and left a legacy of someone whose life really did matter because he tried to bring the message of conservatism to the Black community and broadly to all of America in this country. I also want to honor, and speaking of whose Black life really matters, want to honor someone you probably never heard of, Bernell Trammell. And I sent his picture also to Matt the Wonderful. I'll put a brief picture, so there he is. This is a gentleman who lived in Milwaukee, and he was 60 years old. He was a conservative activist, not an activist in the same way that we're talking about with Lloyd Marcus, but an activist in terms that he would walk around Milwaukee carrying a sign basically saying, vote Trump 2020. He was a conservative. He supported President Trump. He had a publishing business. He would put signs in the windows of his business encouraging people to support President Trump, and especially his Black community, the community where he lived and worked. He would urge them to support President Trump. Obviously, these things take bravery because it is much easier if you're an African American citizen to simply go along, and not just African American citizens of every background. It's so much easier to go along with the pressure of the mob, the pressure of the media, the pressure of left-wing thinking that just seems to have pervaded and invaded society at all levels. It's just easier and you can live life more peacefully if you just go along with what the left-wing agenda is. The left-wing agenda being pushed in schools and media and culture and just everyday life. And so many Americans go along with it, or at least they are silent about it. But both gentlemen I want to honor in this, speaking of whose lives really mattered, both Lloyd Marcus and Bernell Trammell spoke what they believed. Bernell Trammell, most unfortunately, was gunned down over the weekend. He literally was sitting on a bench, car slowed down, and shot him and killed him. And so, you don't know, you could argue it was just some random violence that you don't know what it was due to, could have been some past feud, but there are at least people inside in Milwaukee asking for his shooting death to be investigated. The state Republicans are urging the federal government to do an investigation into the murder of this gentleman, Bernell Trammell, not a famous man, maybe not even known very well, except that this happened to him. But within Milwaukee, he was another voice trying to speak up in the Black community and say, we need to be voting for President Trump. We can't go along with the left-wing agenda. It's destroying our country. So that man also sadly lost his life. And I think it's important to honor people for standing up for what they believe in and really being forceful and honest in the face of what you have to know was an uncomfortable criticism, mockery, derision, scorn, all that the left is so talented at meting out, for people to stand up and say, but I know what I think is right, and I know what I believe, and I'm going to stand for it anyway. Mary, there's a woman who was, going back for just a moment to Lloyd Marcus, his wife is Mary. They married in the year 1977, been married decades, obviously. She put out a very, very sweet statement thanking people for all the calls, and she's been getting calls and emails and people reaching out trying to help, and she put this very sweet note out signing off with thank you for always for the gifts and kindness that all people had shown her husband through the years in helping him, and she puts in quotes, spread the truth, thanking you in advance for your heartfelt giving. I leave you with Lloyd's famous sign off, I'm not African American, I'm Lloyd Marcus, American. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five.